It's a great answer.
Hello, it's the weekend of Saturday, July 29th and Sunday, July 30th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with Off the Beaten Path for the UFO headline news. It is the weekend, but there's no rest for objects in the sky. We've got the Delta Aquarid meteor shower ongoing, as well as the Perseids. They're up there and flashing. Tonight also we get Mercury farthest from the sun. Here's what earthsky.org says about that. Depending on where you live worldwide, the innermost planet Mercury reaches its greatest elongation from the sun, July 29th or 30th. That's the farthest point from the sun on our sky's dome. Because this is the greatest eastern elongation, Mercury will be to the east of sunset. In other words, it will be low in your western sky after sunset. Look for Mercury in that western twilight, starting around 45 minutes after the sun goes down. Mercury will be pretty much online with two much brighter celestial objects, the Moon and planet Jupiter. Since these two brilliant beauties will pop out almost immediately after sunset, they can help guide you to Mercury. You're going to need that unobstructed horizon in the direction of sunset and clear skies to view Mercury. You might also want to bring a pair of binoculars, just in case your sky is murky near the horizon. At mid-northern latitudes, Mercury sets roughly 1 hour after the sun does. Because Mercury, that innermost planet, orbits the sun inside Earth's orbit, this world always stays closely tethered to the sun in Earth's sky. But on July 30th, 2017, at around 5 UTC, Mercury swings to its greatest angular distance, that's 27 degrees east of the sun, which places Mercury in the evening sky. However, since Mercury goes around the sun in that very eccentric oblong orbit, its greatest elongations vary from about 18 to 28 degrees. In fact, technically speaking, Mercury's greatest elongation, July 30th, counts as the greatest elongation of the year. It says that right here. Bruce McClure from earthsky.org, who wrote this article, has a great set of elongations for 2017. They're technical. They don't come trippingly to the tongue, shall we say, but you can check them out later by a link at ufoheadlinenews.com. Mercury goes a whopping 27 degrees east of the sun later in July. You'd think this should be the best apparition of Mercury in the evening sky for 2017, but no, not for us at mid-northern latitudes. For instance, at 40 degrees north latitude, which would be the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Mercury sets about 1 hour and 9 minutes after the sun does. But go to the southern hemisphere, that same 40 degrees latitude south will take you to Tasmania, where Mercury sets some 2 hours and 15 minutes after the sun. So the southern hemisphere has that big advantage, although Mercury's elongation from the sun, well, that's the same in both hemispheres. But in either hemisphere, the most favorable, greatest elongation of an inferior planet, Mercury or Venus, is very dependent on the season. The greatest evening elongation is the most auspicious whenever it closely coincides with the spring equinox, and least so when it occurs near the autumn equinox. Mercury last reached its greatest evening elongation April 1st, 2017, and although Mercury's evening elongation was only 19 degrees east of the sun at that time, it was a better evening elongation for mid-northern latitudes. Oh, this is the part where we step forward and say, we promise here at UFO Headline News and Off the Beaten Path never to administer any pop quizzes, no tests, just absorb this info. You never know when it's going to come in handy. So here's the bottom line. Mercury's greatest elongation from the sun comes July 29th or 30th, and that puts it at its farthest point from the sun on our sky's dome. Enjoy! This broadcaster caught the Moon and Jupiter last night in one binocular field, and that was cool. Do any of you gentle listeners recall that phrase, what's the buzz? Like, what's happening, man? Well, here's what's happening. A plane-sized asteroid buzzes by Earth undetected. Eric Mack writes this for CNET. A big space rock slipped right by us last week and was only spotted as it left our cosmic neighborhood. Astronomers first spotted an asteroid about as long as a 737 passenger jet last Sunday and analyzed its path to determine it had made a close pass by our planet 3 days earlier. In other words, a big space rock slipped by us. No detection. We only saw it in our cosmic rear-view mirror. While the asteroid, now named 2017-001, flew right on by without incident, it was a relatively close pass. It came within about one-third the distance between the Earth and the Moon. That's roughly 76,448 miles, or 123,031 kilometers. With an estimated size of between 82 and 256 feet, or 25 and 78 meters, it was around 3 times as big as the bolide that entered our atmosphere in 2013, the one that exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, blowing out windows and causing some injuries on the ground. That house-sized bit of cosmic debris had also been previously undetected. It's not that it's impossible to detect asteroids when they come close to us either. In fact, a much smaller asteroid that passed even closer was spotted on its approach in January. Roughly 10 other asteroids have passed as close or closer to the Earth as 2017-001 this year. Most of them are discovered shortly before they whiz by us. But astronomers are already anticipating the return of asteroid 2012 TC4. That's set to pass us at a distance more than twice as close as 2017-001. In the case of the plane-size asteroid, it was first seen by telescopes in Hawaii. It appears to be very dark, non-reflective, which probably made it harder to spot. That's what Eddie Irizarry thinks, and he's NASA's Solar System ambassador. Also, space is a very large place filled with thousands of near-Earth asteroids. While many of them have been cataloged and are tracked, it seems we still don't have quite enough eyes, human or digital, to spot them all. We're wondering if there's some application for that citizen scientist meme right about here. If you've carved out a space in your weekend for pondering, well, you might fit this in somewhere. Half of everything in the Milky Way, including humans, comes from far-flung galaxies. Yup, we might be galaxy stuff. Hannah Osborne writes this for Newsweek.com. Up to half of the Milky Way is made up of matter that came from distant galaxies, having been ejected from its home during supernova explosions. This means everything in our home galaxy, including humans, is in part of intergalactic origin. Using supercomputer simulations, scientists were able to track how, over time, matter had been moved around the universe via a process called intergalactic transfer. The team from Northwestern University say their findings have important implications for galaxy evolution, providing an insight into how matter becomes distributed throughout the cosmos. In the study, published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, researchers developed numerical simulations that produce 3D models of galaxies, showing how these galaxies changed from when they formed just after the Big Bang up to present day. Supercomputer simulations let the team see how galaxies acquire matter over time, and they found that when stars explode, they eject huge amounts of gas from their host galaxies. This matter can then be sent into other galaxies along powerful galactic winds. Here's a quote from Daniel Angles Alzacar, quote, "Given how much the matter out of which we formed may have come from other galaxies, we could consider ourselves space travelers or extragalactic immigrants. It is likely that much of the Milky Way's matter was in other galaxies before it was kicked out by a powerful wind, traveled across intergalactic space, and eventually found its new home in the Milky Way." End quotes. This newly identified phenomenon of intergalactic transfer, the team says, will be hugely important in understanding galaxy evolution. Their findings showed that up to 50% of the matter in larger galaxies, including the Milky Way, is made up from matter transferred via galactic winds. Study co-author Fauscher Gegier said, quote, "This study transforms our understanding of how galaxies formed from the Big Bang. What this new mode implies is that up to 1/2 of the atoms around us, including in the solar system, the Earth, and every one of us, comes not from our own galaxy, but from other galaxies up to 1 million light years away," end quotes. Researchers now plan to test their supercomputer predictions by collaborating with observational astronomers. They're going to use space and ground-based telescopes. Oh, we'll see what comes of this and keep you in that galactic loop right here at UFO Headline News on Inception Radio Network. Time to segue from galaxy stuff to legendary mythological kings. Well, we can do that. Here's the headline: Archaeologists return to legendary birthplace of King Arthur. Megan Gannon writes this for LiveScience.com. Archaeologists are back at the legendary birthplace of King Arthur. Last summer, researchers discovered traces of early medieval life at Tintagel in Cornwall on England's southwest coast, where the legendary British monarch was said to have been born. Now they've returned to that site for another round of digging to further explore buried buildings dated from the 5th to the 7th centuries. The striking ruins of a 13th century castle still stand on the Tintagel headland, but the site's history stretches back further to the centuries after the end of Roman rule. It was during this time that King Arthur is said to have fought the invading Saxons. Tintagel is the birthplace of Arthur, according to a 12th century writer named Geoffrey of Monmouth. That's Geoffrey with a Geoffrey. It was Geoffrey of Monmouth who popularized legends about the king and the wizard Merlin. And still, there is no airtight historic evidence that Arthur existed. Archaeologists have studied Tintagel occasionally since the 1930s, but there are parts of the site that remain unexplored. Last year, a team from the English Heritage and the Cornwall Archaeological Unit embarked on a 5-day investigation of that trading settlement, or citadel, which once existed during the Dark Ages on Tintagel Island, which, by the way, is not an island exactly. It's a peninsula connected by a small strip of land to the mainland. In one artificially terraced area of the headland, the archaeologists uncovered thick stone walls, slate staircases, pavements, and other remains of buildings that likely were a part of a larger complex. The researchers plan to extend their trenches in this area to, quote, "get a good look at the scale and size of the buildings and find out exactly when they were built and how they were used," end quotes. That's from Jackie Nowakowski, project director at the Cornwall Archaeological Unit. She and her colleagues have released a new report which details the findings of last year's excavation. They describe the wide range of locally made iron artifacts found at the site: brooches, belt buckles, dress hooks, knives, and horseshoes, which could tell them a lot about the everyday life of the people at early Tintagel. Other items revealed that the settlement was connected to extensive trade networks. For instance, the archaeologists found fragments of glass vessels which might have come from France, Spain, and Scandinavia. And they found broken bits of ceramic storage vessels that originated as far away as Turkey and Cyprus in the eastern Mediterranean. Here's a quote from Wynne Scott, a curator with English Heritage. Quote, "It's easy to assume that the fall of the Roman Empire threw Britain into obscurity. But here, on a dramatic Cornish clifftop, they were making use of substantial stone buildings, using fine tablewares from as far away as Turkey, drinking from decorated Spanish glassware, and feasting on pork, fish, and oysters," end quotes. Yum. While archaeologists have evidence that this community was quite sophisticated and wealthy, they have not yet established a direct link with British royalty of the time. For now, the researchers think the site was most likely a secure stronghold of the rulers of Dumnonia. That's spelled Dumnonia, the kingdom that included Devon and Cornwall during the Dark Ages. Kudos to those archaeologists trying to shed a little light. Sometimes off the beaten path takes us back into the past, like now. Here's a headline: Tomb of King Tutankhamun's wife likely discovered. Ishani Roy writes this for the International Business Times.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
Ooh, all right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
History buffs may have a reason to rejoice after a team of archaeologists found evidence of a tomb which they believe to be that of King Tutankhamun's wife, Ankhesenamun. The group, led by renowned and controversial archaeologist Zahi Hawass, is sure there is a tomb located at the tomb of Pharaoh Ay. Those dates would be 1327 to 1323 BC. We're guessing that's pronounced I, and he was Ankhesenamun's second husband. That tomb is located in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, but at this point archaeologists are not still fully sure whether it belongs to King Tut's wife or not. Said Hawass, quote, "We are sure there is a tomb here, but we do not know for sure to whom it belongs," end quotes. The article regarding the tomb's discovery by Hawass's team was first published July 7th by National Geographic Italia. The archaeologist later confirmed the discovery to the website Live Science as well. He also said his team plans to excavate the new tomb. Regarding the presence of the tomb in the area, Hawass, who is the former head of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, said he found 4 foundation deposits, adding that they are, quote, caches or holes in the ground that were filled with votive objects such as pottery vessels, food remains, and other tools as a sign that tomb construction is being initiated, end quotes. Zahi Hawass went on to explain that ancient Egyptians, quote, usually did 4 or 5 foundation deposits whenever they started a tomb's construction, end quotes. Moreover, said Hawass, radar detection of a substructure near Ankhesenamun's supposed tomb could be an indicator of an entrance to her tomb. Hawass was head of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities between 2002 and 2011. He was Egypt's first Minister of State for Antiquities after the post was created back in January of 2011. He resigned from that post in July of 2011. Currently, he serves as the director of the Italian expedition in the Valley of the Kings. Egyptians were known to build elaborate tombs in ancient times for their kings and pharaohs. They built mastabas, tombs made of dried bricks, which were then used to shore up shafts and chambers dug into the earth. There were ceremonies held at every mastaba, which had a large room where people would honor the spirit of the deceased. There would be an adjoining smaller room in the mastaba called the serdab, where a statue of that dead person could be placed so that the spirit could witness and enjoy these ceremonies. While the mastaba continued as a tomb for common people, for royalty, it was replaced by the structure known as the pyramid. Egypt's Valley of the Kings is home to multiple hidden tombs. Royalty were buried more than 3,000 years ago. The hidden treasure may include several small tombs, with the possibility of a big-time tomb holding a royal individual. We'll keep our eyes on the skies over Egypt and see what else we can dig into. Here's a cute little snippet. We're so totally unstuck in time, we might as well toss this in here. Headline, turns out Tyrannosaurus rex would have broken its tiny legs if it had tried to run. Sarah Begley gets the byline here for Time magazine. If the Tyrannosaurus rex chase scene in Jurassic Park gave you nightmares, rest assured, even if the dinosaurs returned to Earth, you'd easily outpace those fearsome beasts in an SUV. According to a new report published in the journal Peer J, the fastest a Tyrannosaurus rex could have walked was 12 miles an hour. That differs with those past theories that the T-Rex could really run. The Washington Post reports that this study varies from past research because it includes weight loads in its calculations. The study's authors say that testing on a Model T Rex revealed the king of the dinosaurs would have snapped its leg bones had it tried to run. However, they acknowledge that they could have differently accounted for factors such as tendon elasticity. Still, that's not to say that a speed-walking T-Rex heading your way wouldn't be terrifying. It would roughly be akin to an elephant charging you. An elephant with 8-inch teeth, by the way. It's off the beaten path, but UFOs are still a part of it. Here's a sighting from Dundee, Scotland. We picked this up from UFOstalker.com. MUFON issued it a case number for purposes of tracking and identification. Here's that number, 85443. The date of this sighting is the 28th of July, 2017, and it got a same-day report. In summary, our witness offers this. Photos taken before and after looking at dolphins. Object appears on one photograph, not before or after. And yes, those photographs are here. You can find them later, gentle listeners, by heading on over to UFOheadlinenews.com. Sighting specifics give a viewing distance of 501 feet to 1 mile, and eventually over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet, and yes, there was cloud cover. Sighting duration 1 second. Object features patterned surface and other and unknown. Its flight path was stationary, and this object was shaped like an egg. Geolocation-wise, it's curious. Apparently, this event took place near something called Castle Green Crazy Golf Course. Well, Scotland, golfing, we don't know about the crazy part, but it looks to be, according to the Google map, right on the coast, right on the ocean. And yes, that tallies with the witness report, which begins. I was at the beach with family, and we saw dolphins in the River Tay. My girlfriend from Bulgaria doesn't believe we have dolphins in the river in Scotland, so I was trying to snap some shots of them. I was using my Sony Xperia x23 MP camera. I took several photos while focusing on the water, and when I looked back to see if I'd caught any dolphins emerging, one of the photographs in the middle of the set taken had a strange brown egg-shaped object in the sky. Clearly, the object is in the distance. It isn't dirt on my lens, and my device is waterproof, therefore it's airtight. Nothing shows in the other pictures, the ones before or after. I just can't explain it. It is curious. You'll have to check it out for yourselves later. Let's zoom across a lot of water, and we won't stop till we come to Tampa, Florida. That's the setting for MUFON sighting 85421. Date of the sighting 7/28/2017. Date submitted 7/28/2017. Summary: appeared, flashed, dim light to extremely bright. Move a little, then repeat. Sighting specifics offer a viewing distance over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet. Nope, no cloud cover. The sighting duration 10 minutes. And in spite of that chunk of time, the witness still reports the object features as unknown. Its flight path was hovering, then path, and its shape square, rectangular. There isn't any note for meteorology over Tampa, Florida that night, but here's the event itself. Watching for a meteor shower around 12 a.m. Saw a couple of meteors go by, and then I saw a dim light that moved in the opposite direction of the meteor shower. This dim light stopped, and then it flashed an extremely bright light. This object stayed, hovered, flashed lights at different levels of brightness, and then it began to move again, very slowly, and it repeated those flashes. At this point, I ran inside, got my binoculars, and when it flashed bright, you could make out a black shape. That black shape looked rectangular. The object then went dim, and it flew off to the north. Later, I checked the space app. There weren't any satellites or rocket bodies flying over Tampa that night. Oh, out looking for meteors. There's usually an uptick, 4th of July, meteor showers, people out looking for what they know is there, and lo and behold, They see things they just can't identify. It's worth it. Go out, take a look. You never know. Let's go from Tampa, Florida to San Bernardino, California. It's MUFON case number 85442. The date of this sighting is July 26th, 2017. It was reported 2 days later. In summary, bright, randomly pulsating light moving in west to east direction. In the category of sighting specifics, our witness reports a viewing distance of over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet, sans cloud cover. Sighting duration 10 minutes. Object features, wings, other and unknown. The flight path of this thing was a straight line path, and then a path with directional change. And according to our reporting witness, the object shape does not apply. Here's the Cali weather at the time of this event. It was hot. The maximum temperature was 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature was 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius. Maximum visibility over San Bernardino, California was 10 miles, 16 kilometers, dropping down to a minimum of 4 miles, 6 kilometers. The sighting seemed to go something like this. While looking at a bright flickering star on the northern horizon, slightly east of the Big Dipper but below it, I saw a very slow object moving. It was extremely bright, pulsating light that was moving in a somewhat up and down flight path. The time was around 10 to 11 p.m., so the sky was nearly completely dark, except for light pollution from the city. I saw no physical surface, but I believe it may have been a triangular object, since the light pulsed in a somewhat random order, but the light kept going in the same direction. The light would only pulse, these lights, one at a time, and slowly fade out to black. Just at the front of the craft, the other points, possible wing tips, had this light, but the light was far brighter. This light was also brighter than a passenger plane coming in for a landing at night with headlights on. At first, I thought that it was maybe even a nova or a supernova, but it continued to move across the sky, so I immediately dismissed that idea. I would like to have somebody investigate this as soon as possible, and I'm sorry for not including photos or videos. I realize this may hamper the investigation, if not completely render it invalid. Well, we're thinking not necessarily, dear witness. It could very well be a case of someone wanting to collect that information, someone like MUFON. It's a question of people power. Not enough people, not enough hours in the day. Speaking of time, well, it's done that thing again. We can see from all the clocks and all the time zones we've got to fly because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network Off the Beaten Path. Follow today's broadcast on iHeartRadio or YouTube. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See